Good afternoon and welcome to our weekly Wednesday creativity workshop with Adobe Education. Today is Wednesday, October 9th. And actually in Australia, Darren, who's joining us from Western Australia, it is early in the morning on Thursday, October 10th. So thank you, Darren, so much for joining us. Darren is going to be talking about changing a 2D picture in Adobe After Effects, and he'll also be using Photoshop today. And Darren is joining us from Atwell College in Western Australia, and I had the pleasure of chatting with him in person last week when I was at the Sydney Summit. So thank you, Darren, again, so much for waking up really early, and I know you're on holidays too. So I'll just go ahead and hand it off to you.
Hello everybody, welcome from Perth, Western Australia, where it's the sunny, dark 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to keep my voice sort of lowish due to the fact that I don't want to wake up my children, etc. So if you see a small child poke their head around the side of the camera going, "Daddy, what are you doing?" then you know that's what's going on. So just a little bit of a background of myself. Well, let's see. First of all, by my accent, I actually did not grow up in Australia. I grew up in the United Kingdom. I grew up in Canvey Island, Essex, and I emigrated to Australia when I was 21 years old. So depending on my sleep state, my accent changes. According to my childhood friends back in the UK, whenever I talk to them on Skype and stuff, they always say that I've actually got quite a strong Australian accent. But if you talk to Australians, they go, "No, we can hear your English accent." So like a lot of people around the world, I'm a bit of a transnational. Secondly, I come from the city of Perth in Western Australia, and Western Australia is on the other side of the continent of Australia. And if you actually know a little bit about geography, the continent of Australia, which is the smallest continent in the world, or the biggest island, happens to be the same size as the continental United States. So when I said I met Clara in Sydney, it's like we met in New Jersey, and I actually live in San Antonio. It's right on the other side of the country. So I have a little bit of awareness of the educational system in the United States with the district system. In Western Australia, or Australia, we actually have a federal government with a federal system, which means each state has its own educational approach. So today's talk demonstration isn't exactly the most innovative thing I've ever done, but it's probably one of the most fun, quick and easy ways to engage a disengaged bunch of students. So primarily I teach basically year 8s or year 9 students, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Atwell it comes from a low socioeconomic area. It has probably the most committed, hard-working staff I've ever worked with in the last 21 years. And it has some pretty good IT infrastructure, but we're dealing with a clientele where a large proportion of them are pretty disengaged. So what I work with, it has to engage students straight away. Not to say there's a large amount of engaged students that love what they're doing. Oh, yeah, definitely. But there is a proportion. So a little bit, I'm just going to share my PowerPoint now. So share PowerPoint, going over to PowerPoint. There I am. Let's click on the F5 of the PowerPoint. And if you can, you're sharing your PowerPoint. Let's run this PowerPoint. Push a button. Okay, is that coming through? It should do. So Parallax, using Photoshop and After Effects, a relaxed slideshow deck, because it's 5 a.m. during my holiday, and I'm a big fan of the dude. So I'm not exactly wearing pajamas at the moment, but there you go. So Parallax. First of all, it's not new. There are many, many, many YouTube sites and YouTube videos explaining how to do this. So that's where I found out the approach. So for example, I want to really call out a gentleman called Josh Keogh, who's got over 500,000 views of this particular tutorial of 18 minutes and 35. As I said, one of the jobs I used to do before being a before being a teacher was being a journalist. So I'm actually very much into accrediting somebody else's work. So I use Josh's work a lot to actually prepare for this talk. So I want to make sure everybody understands that a lot of this belongs to Mr. Josh Keogh, and that's what he shared up on YouTube. Very important that. So I'm just going to move your little photo. Oh, good, I can move you around. Right, why? So as a high school teacher of often disengaged students, it's immediate. Students, when they work this technique and work on the approach, they really do get it. They can see it immediately, and you hear them go, ooh, and the words, oh, that's cool, comes out a lot. So you think, right, as soon as you hear that, that's cool, you think, great, I've grabbed their attention, they're engaged. It's fairly simple to complete. This isn't a 6-month, 3-month, 1-month project. This is something that probably take about, realistically, for a sharp student, 4 hours. For a not so sharp student, perhaps a bit longer. It's also extendable. High achievers can really go to town. So even though you're pitching this at your disengaged students that can't really engage or have got a lot of issues from outside the classroom, your good students that really do want to achieve, when they're working on it, they can go for leather. It looks cool. It looks cool. It's fun. If it looks cool and it's fun, you don't have to really concentrate too much on selling the concept. You're actually trying to sell the skill acquisition. It leads into more expensive special effects techniques that can be used using After Effects. So this is a good way to introduce After Effects. Now, I don't know how it is in how you approach it, but a lot of students have some knowledge of Photoshop by the time they get to year 9, even if they've just used simple pen techniques, etc. But you then bundle this in with After Effects, and it takes After Effects and extends it. It introduces pen pass and other Photoshop techniques. And what's the next one? All right, thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to go back to the screen. Yes, I love the dude. Yes, Brian, yeah, I love the dude. I could start doing the Donny sideshow, but it's probably not as... Shut up, Donny. Right, there you go. Moving on. So let's actually have a look. What next are we going to do? I'm going to share my Google Chrome. You guys, oh dear, first thing. Okay, I'm going to pause, resume sharing. That's it. Okay, there we go. I want to go on to there. So can you guys see the Google Chrome now? Sorry, my Google Chrome page. So I just thought I'd show you that these are all these particular videos. So there's Mr. Keogh, Josh Keogh. So this is a highlight. But if you just go onto YouTube, so you don't, even though I'm sort of demonstrating this technique, you do not have to go, and you just go and look up Parallax. So that's this thing along here, Parallax. In YouTube, and there's so many. You can also do Parallax in PowerPoint. So you can actually, if you don't want to even engage with Photoshop and After Effects, yes, I know it's Adobe and we're supposed to be promoting, yeah, go Adobe. But at the same time, you can do it with other programs as well. 3D Parallax Photoshop. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of websites. So I'm going to stop sharing that. Okay. Actually, and then I'm going to go back to there, go to Chris Foss. So, and then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to share Chrome and go back to my Chrome. Can you see Chris Foss on your, just give me a thumbs up. Chris Foss is there? Can you see Chris Foss? Yeah, that's it. That's what I want of that one. Interrupt that. Thank you, Clara. All right, okay. So I thought actually I'd introduce an artist that sort of inspired me when I was a lot younger. He's very, very famous if you read a lot of sci-fi novels that I did as a kid. British artist called Chris Foss. His art is absolutely unique, and if you know Chris Foss, you go, oh, that guy, because you look at the pictures and you go, oh, I remember those covers. He was very famous for doing that particular one there. He worked on the spaceships from Guardians of the Galaxy, Jodorowsky's Dune, which was a rather famous attempt at making the Dune planet, the Dune film in the 70s, and some things along the lines of, there we go. So, I mean, I don't know if you actually make sure that's muted, but some of his designs are unique. And yeah, I'd just like to point him out that if you haven't looked up Chris Foss's work, he also, oh, hello, what's that? Go away. Right, he also illustrated Asimov's Foundation, Second Foundation trilogy. So it's actually, quite an interesting artist if you're into art. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going a bit crazy here. And then I'm going to get into start doing the thing. Yes, Chris Foss is awesome. I agree. Chris Foss is awesome. All right, so that's my introduction. And let's get on with the show. So I'm going to go to Photoshop. All right, and I'm going to go back to Blue Jeans, and I need to share Adobe Photoshop. Okay, give me a thumbs up if it's coming through. Is it coming through? Yeah, good. Okay, so I'm going to move Ms. Galen up the top there so I can get on with it. So here's just an idea that I did. I actually have got a Chris Fox book opened up in Photoshop. So here's one I made earlier. I've always wanted to say that. I've made one earlier where I've actually gone through and chopped it up. So just running it through. Now, I'm going to assume you guys don't know anything about Photoshop. I'm sure you do. But at the same time, I'm going to be quick about it. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to actually chop up the picture into bits. Considering the time of the morning, I'm not going to be that thing. So, for example, I would use the magic wand tool. I won't. All right, we'll get 0.32. So we're going to zoom in, Control Plus. Go up to the text, because you've got to immediately start looking at the elements within the picture and start thinking of them as three-dimensional objects. Well, first of all, the text is three-dimensional, so I'd use a fairly well set up magic wand just to quickly grab hold of them. Now, of course, as anybody that's used Photoshop, there is always more than one way to do this. The way I'm doing is the one that feels the most natural to me, the quickest to me. Some people may go straight to the magic lasso, some people may go to this, etc. Doesn't really matter. I'm just demonstrating that I'm thinking of the text here as a three-dimensional object within my two-dimensional world. So I'm just going to zoom out. As I said, it also, as I say to the children, start learning your shortcuts. So, for example, I'm holding down the space bar and I'm going to select the spaceship. Now, I'm going to use the pen tool. And as I said, a little side note, as I often commiserate with Miss Galen, in my institution we use Adobe CS6 because my school administration really doesn't like the idea of paying a yearly fee, and we actually own CS6 outright, which I think is ridiculous. So on my laptop I've actually got the latest Photoshop, which is pretty cool. But at school we use CS6, so I discovered there's a whole new set of pen point options. So using the pen tool, Control Z, and you have to excuse me. We're just going to quickly draw a pathway around the spaceship. So I'm just going to demonstrate it very quickly. I'm not going to bore you to death by showing you my incredible pen techniques, but this is something where you'd actually get the students to really take their time, get them to do a very simple parallax before a little training of a very simple shape and with a very simple background before moving on to something like this. Now, I'm not going to bore you to death with this, so I'm going to go to the one that I made earlier. Yay, Mr. Smith. So here we go. If we look at the one I made earlier, and I start turning things on and off, so we have a picture, a classic book from the 1970s. So we have got, if I turn off, because I used Photoshop, I've got my text, which I selected with a mistake. There's a mistake on the V there. Yes, I know it's a mistake there. But I use my magic wand tool to bring up the text as a separate element. I also have the word Chris Foss down here as a separate element. I have the ship as a separate element, cut out nicely with a pen tool. And because Chris Foss likes to work with sharp lines with his designs, because they're quite unique, they're pretty easy to draw around. And then I've got the background. So even though, of course, it looks like it's one thing, we all know that it's actually 4 separate things. Okay, so back to my blue jeans. I'm going to stop sharing that, and then I'm going to go to my After Effects, share screen, go to After Effects, and give me a thumbs up if that's coming through. Is that coming through? It's good. I assume it's coming through. Get with the program. All right. So I have, here's one I've made earlier. We can refer to that in a minute because I know it works. So I'm going to import it. So I go File, New, Project. I hope I don't stuff this out. Don't save. Actually, I'm going to count. I'm not going to play around with this. Right, save as Parallax. I'm going to save that. Do you want to replace it? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go File, New, Project. I'm going to start from the beginning, but I know I can actually go back to it. All right, so here we go. I'm in After Effects. Now, After Effects, if you've never really used After Effects, you'll look at it with the usual, go, oh, okay, it's got the usual, excuse me, I have to have a cup of tea. Perhaps going a bit. So it's got the usual GUI that we associate with Adobe, lots of little tiny micro buttons and everything hidden away, but it's also got like a running frame, and it's, once you get into it, it's actually quite a great program, and over time I've actually slowly fallen in love with it, though I am quite keen on Adobe Rush as well now, and of course Adobe Substance. So go File, so I'm going to go Import File. Now I'm going to go to my pictures, and I called it Chris Foss all chopped up. I'm importing that. All right, and it defaults by coming in as footage. You don't want that. You want it to go to Composition, Retain Layer Sizes, Editable. Click OK, and up it comes. You then, there, right, and there it is. It's actually, oh dear, I knew this would happen. Where are we? There we go, good. So it pops in. So it's actually imported it in all 4 layers. So we've got the text, we've got Chris Foss, we've got the ship, and we've got layer 0, which is background. So I'm going to go back to, so you see individual ones, all there as individual elements. I really wish I had done that. There, all good. All right. So first of all, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to rename this as background. Even though we all do it, when it comes to these sort of things, it really helps if you do actually label things properly. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all of these 2-dimensional objects into 3-dimensional objects. So down here, you see a little tiny 3-dimensional object, a little cube. You tick all of these ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the machine is automatically brought it in as 2 views. You'll probably see 1 view. Go to 2 views. Well, that's straight on. That's horizontal, this one here. So you're already taking a 2-dimensional object and turning it into 3 dimensionals. Think of that episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes into the 3 dimensions. Okay. Now, I need to start separating these out and giving them some depth. Then I need to reshape them. I need to add a camera, and then I'm going to demonstrate to you some of the things you can do. So in here, I'm going to go right click. I'm going to go new camera. All right, and it comes up with a classic rendering of a 1930s camera. You don't have to do anything to this. You can play around with all the presets and the zoom and the focal length like you are actually working with a camera. I've never had to, but I always think it's cool that you can. So click OK, up it comes. And if I zoom out here, you can see a standard 3D rendering top down of a camera view. And it doesn't matter, but if you look carefully, you can see the X, Y, and Z, which you see in any, if you work in any 3D graphics programs, reproduce as well. All right, so let's look at our background. We're going to change the position of the background. So I'm going to use the shortcut letter P, and you've got the X, Y, and finally the Z coordinates. So we're just going to click on it and push it backwards, and you see that the three-dimensional background is going back in space for real, which is great. But it's now a little bit out of size. So we're going to click on this and we're going to resize it. Now, in this case, I don't really care about keeping it in too much to scale, but if you hold the S down, sorry, if you hold the shift down, you can scale it out to perfection a little bit more. All right, so that's the background done. Then I think I'm going to push the ship back a bit. So select the ship, go back, push the P button for position. And again, just like Photoshop, there is more than one way of doing this. I'm using shortcuts just because of the speed and the fact that I'm actually recording this, but you can actually be very precise when you actually go and use some of the more in-depth control. So if I get hold of this, I want to push the ship back a bit, and we're already starting to get a three-dimensional effect. We'll leave it there. Then the text Chris Foss. I want to go on Chris Foss here. I want to pull that push that a little. Might leave that wherever there is, but the text on the front. I go to P. Just going to perhaps push that forward. Then go over to this room here and reposition it. Okay. Well, that's really good, Darren, but what does that actually mean? It means that even though to the eye over here, and I'll pull that over in a little bit there, to the eye over here, it looks like the same cover if we'd have done it absolutely accurately, but in reality over here, we've taken two-dimensional objects and actually turned them into a three-dimensional object. All right, so what happens next? Well, we can get on our camera, okay, and this one, oh, by the way, this is defaulted to 30 seconds of clip. When you import it from Photoshop into After Effects, you can set it up for 5, 10, 15 seconds. So when you're working with your students, when you do your very first, very simple version of this, just set it for 5 seconds. Maybe 10, just so they can see the effect in action. So I'm going to go to the camera. All right, it's got a whole set of transformation. Oh, so I might just demonstrate here. There we are. No, Control Z. We can. All right. So if you may. As I said, I don't really want to play around with it too much because knowing my luck, I'll make a big mistake. You've gone dark, Clara. All right, Control Z. But you can actually, yeah, your light's gone off. Orientation. You can actually get all different set of effects that you can do with this one. All right. So, because I'm starting to lose it a little bit, I'm going to go File. Open recent, the one I've already don't save. So if we go back to the one that I made earlier, okay, this one here. Oh, I thought I did that. Yeah, there we go. There's that one there. Okay, let's. I thought actually I'd renamed. Call that background. We're just going to quickly get this done again. Sorry, I do apologize, but we're going to just do a quick animation on it. So pushing the background back. There we go. Go back on here, dragging it down, hold down the shift key, bring it out, go for the ship. Where are we going to bring the ship forward? So we're going to go down the P. We're going to bring that ship forward, and then in here, we're going to drag it up. Might scale it down a bit over there. We're going to go hold of our text. There's a text. P. Alright, we're going to push the text forward or backwards. Doesn't really matter at the moment. Oh, I think we'll bring it a bit forward, not beyond the ship there, about there. Drag this stuff, leave the Chris Foss. Okay, so now, here we go. If I'm really here. Okay, there's our camera. On the camera, I'm going to go to P. Good. Okay, so just demonstrating some of the three-dimensional effects. If you see I'm running it back and forth, you may notice there's already a subtle three-dimensional effect happening. All right, so I'm just going to go to the background. I'm just going to go to position on the background. Good. I'm just going to do a little bit more. So I'm working on the background. I'm just going to expand the background a bit, gives me a little bit more room to play. Go back down to the position here. Come on, work with me. All right, so we're going to start it off there. That's good. That's working for me. We're going to go to the camera. We're going to start here. So I'm going to tick these two stopwatches to begin the keyframing. I'm going to drag my device right over to the end of the 30 seconds, and I'm going to click these two on here. And this is where I always make mistakes, but hey, you know. So let's see, at the end we're going to let's zoom out a little bit. There's that one as well. The position here, we're going to bring this down a little bit, give some effect. We can go scrub it all the way back. That's better. All right, we can go to our ship. We can go into position at the start there. So put it on there. And we bring it along here. And we might move the ship along a bit over there. So simple animation. All right. But then if we hit our space bar, which gives our preview, you can actually see, if you look very carefully, remember my laptop is actually rendering at the moment, so it's pretty slow the first time. But if you look, you can see the ship starting to move through space and the actual artwork change. And that's the effect of Parallax. Very simply, as I said, it's nothing too special. It's the way to explain Parallax is because it's like when you're on a train and the objects in the distance move very slowly, where the objects close at hand move very fast. So that's now running away. And once it's actually rendered, well, it's actually rendering in a preview mode. Now, some other things which I haven't gone into. So, because it's After Effects, you can actually import live video of, say, smoke. So you can have smoke in space, like a classic 1930s Buck Rogers, I think, was actually did it more than Flash Gordon, where they always used to have smoke and mist in the ether of the old 1930s spaceships. So that can be done. So look at the sites, look at Mr. Chris Keogh's and various others. They go into that in far more detail. Speaking as a teacher, rendering. When the kids do this, they tend to go for many million pixels, and they tend to render, and then they get a little bit upset that it's going to take about 6 hours on a school machine to render it out. So when you go File, Export, Add to Render Queue, it comes up here where it says Best Settings. Don't go to Best Settings if you're actually going to mark their work. I always give them there's the marking work that you mark where you're looking to see what they've done from an artistic point of view, from a technical point of view, but you change the quality to draft and the resolution to, say, a quarter. Gets off very easily. So I'm just going to stop sharing this, go back to my Blue Jeans, which is there, and then I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm just going to minimize you for a second, minimize everything, and on my desktop I have actually got a couple of videos of the finished item. So I'm just going to show you the best quality and a not so good quality. So if I go to Blue Jeans, I'm just going to share. Well, let's see if I can get this to, okay, I will do this. I did this last time, so here's the best quality, and I'll just get that going. I'll pause that, go to Blue Jeans, and then I'll share, and video application, screen 1. You're sharing this now. Thumbs up if you can see that. Can you see that? Yep. So yep, this is the best quality ones.
Quick comments and questions. So first, Craig says, this is so cool. You could fly the ship through the book cover. There's so many variations that could be done here.
Oh, yeah. It is cool. It's simple, yeah, but it's cool.
And then Thomas has a question. He said, yep. I would think the students would want to share their cool projects to social media, Facebook, etc. Are there any pointers on effectively exporting from After Effects to social media?
I've never done it. So did you see that one there? So I've just said I'm just scrubbing through. This is something where I've spent a bit of time. Can you see that? Can you see that, Thara?
Yeah, it looks really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm just scrubbing very. So this is the best quality, and yeah, it does look cool. And I've never actually even thought of that. But obviously there are parameters for making Facebook videos. So you can actually set that up in the output settings in After Effects. If I go, so yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing that. Go back to this. I know I'm a bit of a novice at Blue Jeans, guys. I've never really. I keep sharing, and I'm probably doing it all completely wrong. But in After Effects, and I'm sharing that now. So you've got all these various settings here, so you can actually make a template. Now, I've never actually made anything for Facebook, or social media or Instagram. Though it was mentioned by Mr. Keogh saying that you can actually make really cool Instagram. Let's get with the times, guys. It's not Facebook, it's Instagram. Only us olds use Facebook. So yeah, they could. They most definitely could do that. So one last thing, I just wanted to. All right, I'm just going to show you a very poorly rendered one. So there's our high quality one here. I'm just going to shut that down. I'm going to bring up the not so good quality one for marking purposes. I'm going to make sure that's being shared now. So as you said, you got the poor quality one. Now, obviously, this is not for reduce, kids sharing their work. But if you need something, I'm just looking down the right hand side. MP4 were good, but you could mark that as a teacher. So you've got 30 of these to get through. You'd be going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Okay, I can see the fact that Chris Voss is moving. They've done this, they've done that. Another thing, so I'll just shut that down for a second now. I'm just going to close that. So another thing's, I'm going to stop sharing, go back to me. There we go. So yeah, but also you've got to remember, I've just shown you zooming out and doing a traditional parallax effect. You can actually rotate the screen, you can zoom in, zoom out, do fly throughs. It's basically, and that's where your often disengaged, now engaged kids that have having their first bit of a creativity for a while can really go to town with it. So yeah, I said it's not a new approach. There are many, many tutorials out there, but I just like the idea that it's something quick, fast, engaging, uses basic to medium Photoshop skills, using basic After Effects skills, introduces them into After Effects so that they can actually understand how to use After Effects, and then they can go into, you just go, hey, go to YouTube, or here's a whole bunch of videos out there on YouTube about all these different effects that you can do with After Effects. If I go here and I go back in here and I just look up After Effects, I'm going to share it in a second. After Effects awesome. Let's go there. Where are we? After Effects, Special Effects. Yeah, Special Effects. Yeah, water banding. So go down there. I'm just going to now share my Google Chrome. So as I said, if you look here, there's all these different fantastic After Effects things that can be done. So you start off with Parallax and then you move into something else. Here's a classic one. The Thanos is that's really, it looks incredible, but it's really easy to make. And you can do all the various anime things. I've done this one quite a few times, the ability to manipulate lighting. So, I mean, if they want to use their mobile phones, I mean, I'm always aware that, some schools have a lot of money, other schools don't have very much money at all. If you do lucky to have After Effects, and I can actually do this one with the old CS6. So if you have After Effects, you could then move on. So you'd extend that by actually getting the kids to do some small small movie. So using their mobile phones. One of our colleagues, the gentleman from Swinburne University, you've met him. What's his name? Max, isn't it? Nice guy, really nice guy, but he's actually got a whole course where it's all just using mobile phones because that's what we got. And let's be honest, I've got a rather dinged up Motorola Play, and it's still got an exceptionally good camera on it, and that's the cheapest goodie one I can find. So, if you got that, get the kids to use their cameras. Now, in my college, mobile phones are banned due to the various things that go on with mobile phones, but I did manage to get my principal to agree that if I wanted to use it for an educational purpose, they don't have a problem with that. So, yeah, I hope that does. So, in summary, yeah. I think it is just, it's a fun, simple, introductory use of After Effects with Photoshop that takes a two-dimensional object, turns it into 3D using a very old technique, but I find it to be quite engaging. So, according to me, I've been talking for 40 minutes straight, so I'm going to stop now and have a little slurp, and then hopefully maybe answer any questions people have got. I've lost one, he had to go back to his parent conference, but anybody else? Ask away.
Thank you so much, Darren. And for those who are watching the recording, if they want to get in touch with you, or do you have a website or anything else that you want to share with them?
Well, I'm actually trying to lift my game in the edX. I would actually, as usual, promote the Education Exchange. I'm probably going to dump all of this into my thing as a start. As I said, I didn't actually explain earlier on. Was an IT teacher. I was been an IT teacher for 20 years, but I actually went away and requalified and got another degree on top of my teaching degree and became a design and technology teacher. So I'm actually teaching primarily now in the STEM area with metalwork, woodwork, lasers, plastics, and IT, mixing it all together. So, but I still teach a bit of IT, and as I said, I'll be putting it on my edX page. I haven't yet. Oh, thank you. There, look, Clara's put my profile up. It's empty at the moment because I never got around to it. But I will be putting this stuff up later on, well, after I've had some sleep. So if there's any other questions, yes, Max, yes, Max, great gentleman. Always offering out doctorates to teachers, saying, "Come do a doctorate, come do a doctorate." I'm like, going, no, too busy. But he's a lovely guy, and he does do some fantastic work with mobile phones. So I'll happily promote what he does, and he's a great guy. Yeah. So anything else for anybody else?
Yeah, so if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat. And we'll just wait a couple minutes for people to do that if you have questions. And then while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and look. It's Max from Swinburne, you mentioned?
Yeah, definitely.
Max
I know that he does a lot.
Schleser.
Yeah, that's the gentleman. We said he wasn't
I'm just
at
going to
the
find
summit
his
this year, but
profile.
last year. But I know that he does a lot of work with mobile phone creativity, etc. The guy's awesome. Yeah. So
Okay.
there you go.
Great. Well, I'm just posting that in here in the chat. And then, well, if there aren't any questions, I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording here, and then I'll stay on if anyone wants to unmute themselves and just open it up to a Q&A. But thank you so much, Darren. I know it's so early for you. Really appreciate you taking the time. I really enjoyed your session. I can definitely see this being a really interactive way to engage students. You know, if they want to see something that's tangible and exciting that they can then maybe even share with their friends or share on their social media channels. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scrubbing, when you get hold of the thing, you just scrub back and forth and go, oh, yeah, I made that. And of course, then they start doing things like twisting it and actually changing from the three so you can actually see the lines of the two dimensions. And as usual, you think you're creative, but give it to a bunch of high school students or primary school students or children in general, and they just say, and you go, oh, okay, I never thought of that. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm stealing that. I mean, we give them the skills, but we want to fan their creativity, but they've still got the creativity there.
Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much,
you.
everybody, for joining me. That's good, and we're out. Yay.
Perfect. Well, thanks. And for those watching the recording, we're taking a hiatus for next week's creativity workshop, but we'll be back the following week. So looking forward to seeing everyone then. Thank you.
Bye.